Hey, sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the BBallBreakdown podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, don't forget you can click over and listen to the full audio podcast over on iTunes or on our website or Stitcher or any of those different places. And without further ado, let's bring in Kurt Helin, the managing editor for Pro Basketball Talk at NBC Sports, and a guy that I've known probably as long as anybody since I started this whole thing. Kurt, how's it going today?
It's going well. Hey, summer. The kids are back in school. Summer's ending, and there's actually basketball on my TV now again. So I'm kind of happy.
I hear you. I mean, it's the dregs of the summer, fall. Not a lot happening, but certainly people are pouring into our website, and it sounds like they're doing the same for you. And it seems like it's a whole new experience now when you go to Pro Basketball Talk or NBCSports.com/NBA.
Yeah, it's exactly it. We've, as in I had nothing to do with this, but NBC has redesigned their website, which is something that was needed. The website was very 2010. It needed some updated and changes, and NBC has brought those in and brought those online over the last actually just a few days. And the big change for us now is that what went from being the standard Pro Basketball Talk site is now we have taken over the NBA page at NBC Sports. Essentially, what was the Pro Basketball Talk page is now the NBA page at NBC Sports, and that's what you go to. That's where you see the list of headlines and the top stories and all that stuff. So it's a little bit of an adjustment, but I think it's been really good. We've needed the biggest change for us is, and I think the biggest change for a lot of our readers, much like you, I'm sure with your site, we get a lot of stuff off of mobile, a lot of stuff linked off other places, and people click off Twitter. The mobile site on the old version was horrible. It's really a nice mobile site now with which adjusts to your tablet or your whatever. So you can read it on other devices much easier than you used to be able to, which I think is going to be huge for us once we get into I would say once we get into games, but we're kind of into the season. So I mean, it's been kind of fun to watch FIBA Americas and some of the games out of Europe, which have been really pretty entertaining. So for us basketball junkies, it's nice to have some stuff this time of year.
Yeah, well, has anything stood out at you? I've been keeping half an eye on the ESPN3, what I would consider the bad experience of having to go to ESPN3.com. But has anything caught your eye in the FIBA tournament right now?
France looked really good. I've watched a couple of their games, but you kind of expect that. I mean, they are the defending European champions. Tony Parker, I wanted to watch him become the all-time Eurobasket scorer, but that guy is still an elite point guard who really knows how to run a team, and that's another team. I mean, France and they don't have them all in this team, but France had 10 guys in the NBA last year. I think people forget that they're deep with NBA talent. They've got Rudy Gobert, really nice matchup with him and Marcin Gortat the other day from Poland. But they've got Boris Diaw, they've got just NBA Batum, all these NBA guys they can roll through, and that's a really good team. Obviously, they've been fun to watch. And Argentina in FIBA Americas has been better than I thought, was basically putting the offense on Luis Scola's back. And I didn't think his back could carry that kind of weight anymore, but he's been fantastic.
The thing I think with Argentina and France, at least what's, the drum beating, is that there isn't any fresh talent coming out behind them.
Yeah.
After Parker is gone, there are no young point guards coming up behind him. And I wonder, is that what you're hearing too? Are there any kind of diamonds out there that we haven't seen yet from these countries?
I haven't seen them yet, at least in this tournament, and it will be interesting when some of the Eastern Europeans, Hazonia's looked great, and will some of those countries rise up, and in the Americas, Canada's the team on the rise. I mean, Canada's got 6 or 7 NBA players on their roster, and they're fun to watch just because they've got Corey Joseph's a solid NBA point guard, but they've got Andrew Wiggins in a situation where he's got room. There's just way more space in the FIBA game right now, and he's just tearing it up. He's been fantastic.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to that because, not that I am not American or I want to cheer for America, but I always love the underdog. And, without question, if it's going to be America versus the world, eventually some of these countries are going to end up having enough talent. I think the key here, though, and bringing up Tony Parker in France, is that you have to have the guards. You need to have guys that can handle the pressure, getting your offense. And that's something that we didn't used to see back when you and I were growing up. They just didn't have any guards that could play. And now it looks like we're starting to see some of these guys that can do stuff like Steph Curry, which is really exciting.
Yeah, that especially in the international game, and that was always what made Spain stand out the last couple of years against the U.S. Is you'd get into the Olympics or the World Championships or whatever, or the World Cup, I guess they're calling it now, and the U.S. wisely, Coach K is like, hey, I've got there aren't other countries in the world that have Russell Westbrooks. Mm-hmm. Let's just play this high pressure, aggressive defense and force these other countries into turnovers. And those other countries have one at best a couple players that are really NBA caliber and can handle this, and then you throw somebody like a Kawhi Leonard or a Kobe Bryant on them and go shut that guy down, and we could control these teams. Then you'd get to Spain, and suddenly they've got Calderon and Fernandez and all these guys who are really quality players, and it was a different game. Suddenly that kind of high pressure tactics didn't work as well, and the USA had to adjust, beat them, but had to adjust, and it'll be interesting to see how that adapts over time, because Canada may be our biggest threat 3-4 years from now.
Absolutely. And, you didn't even mention, Sergio Fernandez, Sergio Rodriguez. I always do that. And Yule, two of my favorite players who I guess they're not going to come over to the NBA. I actually had heard rumors on Twitter earlier this summer that Sergio Rodriguez was going to try and come back to the NBA. And I was excited to watch him. I turned it on the other day. He didn't have that same Steve Nashian feel to him like I'd seen in the last couple of years. But have you heard anything about that?
I think he poked around and didn't find as much. Didn't find the money to his liking. I mean, he's getting paid to stay in Europe, so I think that's kind of what's going down.
Yeah, well, that's too bad, because I really feel like it sounded like he got a bit of a raw deal the first time around in the NBA. And then when you get to watch him in the FIBA stuff, and you see him, he's got he's the balls on a string, and he can make passes with perfect timing, and then he can still shoot and score a little bit when they need him to. It's so exciting to me when I watch him out there. I guess maybe I shouldn't wish him to come to the NBA, because perhaps what I love about him so much is what he gets in the FIBA game, and that maybe he wouldn't get in the NBA.
Yeah, the other guy, by the way, that now that we're talking about guards who stood out, I've seen some really nice things out of Saric. Dario Saric, who will be over with the Sixers next year or the year after. We'll see. They expect him a little bit next year, but if he stays out at third year, then he's not bound by the rookie scale, contract. So I wouldn't be shocked if he spends a third year overseas before he comes over. And it's kind of the Tiago Splitter thing, where it's like, I can make more if I stay out one more year. But he's looked really good. He's made some impressive passes. He looks like a guy where you can see what they like in him. He seems to have a really good court vision and sense of it. And if you watch him play, you're like, yeah, that guy's got something. That guy could really do something in the NBA.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, to wrap up here, recently on TMZ of all places, somehow they kind of scooped everybody, I guess. They came out with an article talking about what Bill Simmons had mentioned a few weeks ago about the dysfunction in the front office. And it's really kind of bizarre, because it's hard to imagine Jillian Zucker, who was brought in by Ballmer on the business side, they're trying to allege that she's involved in playing time issues and the player development. What do you know about this whole thing?
I'm curious. I don't know how bad it is. I will say this: the fact that this is getting that's a couple of people talk to TMZ about this means that A, there is something there, but B, there's some people with an agenda, and whether that's legitimate or not, whether she's look, like any business, there's going to be a little bleed over between the business side and the basketball operations side in terms of how you're going to market things and who you want. But at the end of the day, the basketball people have to make the basketball decisions the same way the marketing people have to make the marketing decisions. And if she's really trying to bleed that over too much, then like you might in a tech company or something, then that can't happen. And Steve Ballmer is the one who's got to step in and get everybody in their lanes and let everybody go. But I wrote about this yesterday. At the end of the day, I'm not sure it really matters that much in terms of the product on the court. The number of dysfunctional teams that are dysfunctional franchises that have won in pro sports it's a long and storied list.
Right.
And at the honestly near the top of it is a team we discussed a lot today. Those Jordan era Bulls were a mess. Phil Jackson's fighting with Jerry Krause. Reinsdorf's just kind of off counting his money, letting them battle it out. Kukoc is thrown in the middle of this and just getting,
Yep.
Jordan's punching teammates. It's a dysfunctional situation that won 6 championships. I'm not sure that whatever dysfunction there is within the Clippers impacts them on the court at all.
Okay, I agree, and I just feel there's some sort of agenda going on here.
Yes.
It's just very, very bizarre because I don't know. It's just like I've been around enough. I can't picture her in her role somehow feeling like she has the ability to go in there and try and like no one knows who to listen to. But I can't believe it'd be related to anything related to playing time or player development stuff of like what they should we should see guys doing more of. I mean, I don't know. I mean, who knows? Maybe she came in and said, "Oh, here's my buddy who's a shooting coach. He should work with Blake Griffin." Like, I don't know. Very strange stuff. And again, you're right.
I can't picture Doc Rivers putting up with it.
Right.
Honestly, and that's the other thing that makes it interesting about. Look, again, if somebody leaked this, it's somebody with an agenda. Whoever talked to them is many. But that said. Look, Doc is just not going to put up with this. Doc is going. He came here in part to get complete control of a basketball operations side. He's not giving that up.
Absolutely, and it's also impressive that he went from a Doc, good coach, bad GM, with no cap room, no movement ability at all, and everyone was criticizing him for that. And yet, look what they did. They made more moves than anybody.
Yeah, they backed themselves. I mean, like the Spencer Hawes deal that hard capped them, and all this stuff they've done was so bad. And right down to this summer when they got fined for trying to hey, by the way, we're going to get DeAndre. We're going to give you a $200,000 Lexus deal. Sponsorship deal. It's kind of illegal offer that they get fined for. They've made a lot of Steve Ballmer still on a learning curve mistakes. But all that said, Doc Rivers, the GM, knocked it out of the park this summer, and that's the reason they're legitimate contenders. They are we can debate whether they're as deep as the Spurs or the Warriors, but they're in the conversation now, and that was their biggest problem.
Well, absolutely. And Kurt, I got to tell you, you knocked it out of the park today with us with this great podcast and information about, I mean, this is probably as wide-ranging of a pod as I've done in a while. So thank you so much for coming on. Let's make this a regular thing. You should come on and check in with us and give us some insights.
Hey, happy to anytime, man, and I look forward to seeing you around. Since you're out here in LA, I know some places that serve, it's called beer. I'll buy you one. I think you'd like it.
Is it yellow?
Yeah, most of it. Kind of a darkish amber. Yeah.
All right. I mean, because if it's bubbly and yellow, I can handle it. So that sounds great. And, without question, and if you're younger than 21, please do not try that. And, again, don't forget, sports fans, at BBallBreakdown, we're not a channel. We're a conversation. You in? You in, Kurt?
I'm in.